Episode 39, Troop 13 Boy Scout. In 1950, when I turned 11, I became a Boy Scout, just as my brother Gary did at the same age. Troop 13 met weekly in a windowless basement room at the Bussisarcum Grammar School. We learned woodscraft, knot tying, hiking, camping out, trailblazing, and helping old ladies across the street, although we did not do too much of that. We also wore uniforms, red kerchiefs, and we organized ourselves into smaller units called patrols. On meeting nights after classes, we would play capture the flag. Knocking heads, falling down, and general roughhousing was customary. I liked it all. John McCarthy and Joe McCarthy, friends of Gary and brothers from nearby Prince Street, were the scoutmasters. The scoutmaster emeritus, Geezer George McCurdy, was also around a lot. Best thing about being a Troop 13 Boy Scout was the rustic log cabin in rural Bedford, owned by the church in what was then the countryside. McCurdy donated the land and built the cabin. The first time I went there, I was about 8 years old. I was not old enough to be a scout, but Gary took me anyway on an overnight with a bunch of his scout pals. It was great. We hiked around identifying various types of trees and other flora, and also checked out birds, fish, and snakes. Then, after dark, with just a kerosene lantern and in the bunk beds and sleeping bags, the boys told ghost stories and talked dirty. I remember being shocked that my brother was swearing and cursing. I worried that he and others might go to hell. One of those friends, named Guilfoyle, later died very young in an accident. That further caused me anxiety because perhaps Guilfoyle had not confessed his sins and died in mortal sin. The nuns did a good job on me. I am a believer. When I was old enough and a member of the troop, I could go to Bedford on my own. I rode my bike to the cabin and to camp and fish with Justin Rourke, my constant fishing pal. We would stay for days at the cabin with a couple of cans of beans, a box of pancake mix, 3 cans of Kipper snacks, a box of Cheerios, and a real glass bottle of raw milk bought at Dunham's farm in Pinehurst on the way into the cabin. We would fish in the Shawshene River and eat the trout, perch, and pickerel and bass that we caught. We fantasized that we were famous explorers or adventurers in the Amazon or some such thing. We would hike up the slight elevation we called a hill and think about mountain climbing in the Rockies. We put together logs and scrap wood to make a raft that we rode down the river and played Tom Sawyer. It was the best fun a kid ever had. Taking the trip to the cabin was onerous. If we were taking public transportation, we needed to take the bus to Central Square, then the subway to Harvard Square. We would then take a long trolley ride out to Arlington Heights and connect to a non-MTA bus. That would finally take us to Bedford Center. There were no highways like Route 128 at that time. Bedford was the boondock and farm. When we got off the bus, we still had 3 miles more to hike into the cabin. As we got close to the backwoods road into the cabin, there was a pig farmer who had 3 Doberman pinchers. They ran free, and when they saw strangers walking or biking on the dirt road next to the farm, they would dash out snarling and threatening. They had been known to bite scouts, so we always carried hefty sticks. As we approached the pig farm, I always tensed up, and that old fear that brings to mind Cerberus, the 3-headed dog of Greek mythology that guarded the gates to the underworld. Instead, we had to get by these nasty dogs guarding what we thought was heaven. Once we got past that miserable farm, it was into the deep woods and away from civilization. There was no requirement for adult supervision at this cabin. One got the key from the pastor if he were a Troop 13 first-class scout or better. I was a certified first-class scout. When I think back, it was amazing that we were allowed by the parish and the scouts and our parents to stay overnight, cook our own food, swim, fish, hike, and raise hell, all without a nanny. Today, youngsters are not allowed to do anything without a woke cadre of blacks or Asians or handicapped folks or homosexuals to make sure the kids don't have any fun. At home, we played sports all the way to the high school level without an adult organization. Pickup teams voluntarily played in the streets streets and in vacant lots. There was no Little League, Pop Warner, or the like. Today, Oprah probably would do 3 TV shows on the dangers of kids going camping on their own. Dr. Phil would do a show on the possible damage to a camping kid's psyche because of the potential Lord of the Flies syndrome. Speaker Nancy Pelosi would introduce legislation that groups of kids going camping overnight must be comprised of 20% black kids, 10% Hispanic kids, 2 lesbians, 1 illegal immigrant, 1 cross-dresser, and 3 retards. We already had more than our quotient of retards, including me. The Pelosi legislation would also require the accompaniment of 2 scoutmasters who must be flaming homosexual, at least 3 pre-approved mothers, registered Democrats only, and a government official to report to some new acronym federal agency about that unfortunate camping group. I was lucky to grow up in saner time. We learn by doing real things on our own. Thank you for viewing or listening to my podcast episode. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, and if you so choose, I ask you to send a good review and perhaps refer friends who might be interested in this podcast series. Again, my thanks.